Hi, this is Antonio Miranda from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. In the next 10 minutes, I will explain you Cantemist, the Cancer text mining share task. But before that, I will spend 3 minutes explaining the context in which Cantemist was organized. First, we have the Plan for the Advancement of Language Technologies. This is an initiative promoted by the Spanish government, and it aims at fostering language technologies in the Spanish language and also in the other official languages of the country. Within this initiative, within the plan, we find projects such as Cantemist. Second, we have Iberlef. Iberlef is an event to promote language technologies on Spanish language, so it is the perfect fit for the plan. Every year, Iberlef includes many different share tasks, and this 2020 year, the COVID year, Cantemist is one of those share tasks. But for those who do not know what a share task is, I will explain you the setting of a classical share task. In those share tasks or competitions, organizers, together with the domain experts, generate annotated data. In our case, since we are talking about language technology, we have a corpus of documents, a corpus of annotated documents. To create this corpus of annotated documents, the domain experts follow some guidelines. The guidelines allow us to uh, have homogeneous criteria. This, building a corpus of annotated corpus, is a highly laborious task, and it requires a vast resource investment. But it is also very rewarding because the annotated data, the annotated corpus, is then used by the CERTAS participants. How do they use it? Well, first, they use it to generate their systems. And second, we use the annotated data to compare their system with the real annotations. We use a standard metric, and that allows comparison among different systems, and that pushes the technology. So, now that we know those preliminary concepts, those contexts in which the Cantemist CERTAS was organized, let's dive into the CERTAS. Why did we organize it? Well, we want to promote language technologies in Spanish. Spanish language has more than 470 million native speakers, and it is the second one after Mandarin Chinese. But Cantemist CERTAS is not only about Spanish, but also about oncology. And that is because, oncological diseases are a leading cause of death worldwide, and the healthcare expenditure on them is huge. Then the Cantemist CERTAS wants to promote the develop of tools that process cancer-related data. In particular, specifically, we target tumor morphology information in medical text, and the retrieving of that tumor morphology information is key for patients' prognosis, and it is a push towards personalized medicine. To obtain that tumor morphology information, we need to obtain structured data from the clinical narratives. And to do so, in oncology, the World Health Organization maintains the International Classification of Diseases for Oncology, or ICD-10. An example use case of ICD-10 happens in some regions of Spain in which healthcare professionals manually assign ICD-10 codes to clinical documents so that they can categorize the documents or organize them or obtain relevant information from them. So that was the motivation, and now let's go into the Cantemist setting, because Cantemist has three sub-competitions. First, Cantemist name entity recognition. In here, participants must find tumor morphology mentions. For example, if we see here this annotation file, we have start character offset, end character offset, and mention string. That is what participants must find. The second sub-competition is Cantemist norm. In here, participants must find tumor morphology mention, but they also must assign an ICD-10 code to them. That is normalizing. For example, we see this annotation file. In it, we have in the first line the same entity as previously, carcinoma, with the start offset, the end offset, and the mention string. However, in the second line, we have the associated ICDO code. And finally, the third subtrack is Cantemys coding. This is a little bit different. In here, we have no mention, no offsets, just the document name and the associated code. So, for example, if we see the tab separated file of this slide, we see how the document CC_ONCO85 has two associated code, 8010.3 and 8010.6. That is what the participants will receive together with the text of the CC_ONCO85, and that is what they will have to return for the test documents. Now that we know the context, the motivation, the setting, let's go into the corpus. The Cantemys corpus is a manually generated corpus with the tumor mentions labeled by clinical experts. The clinical experts, they have followed guidelines so that the process is reproducible and has quality control. This corpus contains clinical case reports only in Spanish language. It has 103,000 annotated documents. In them, clinical experts have found mentions of tumor morphologies present in the ICDO terminology. How does this look like? Well, let's look at an example. At the end of the slide, we have a Spanish sentence with 4 mentions of tumor morphology. They are highlighted. At its right, you see how the annotation file will look like. We have for each mention the offsets, the mention string, and the code assigned to it. Finally, we release the annotations in the standard BRAD format and also in the CODIES format. With this corpus, the Cantemys CERTAS need to build their automatic systems. Of course, they are free to use any other resource, public or private, in addition to the corpus to help in building the automatic system. For the 3 top performance systems, we have CAS awards. In any of the sub-competitions, the best system receives 1,000 euros, the second one 500, and the third one 200. So, if you are interested, you can check our webpage. I leave you here the links to the webpage, to the data, and to the registration, and also 2 mail addresses where you can send your questions. In the webpage, you will find a schedule. In this schedule, you see that the data is already released, is already open, and that you have deadlines for creating your system. Additionally, there are deadlines pointed to a conference, the CEPELN conference. This is because participants have the opportunity to write a short paper describing their system and their results, and this paper will be presented at CEPELN conference in September. So that was all. Please send me any question to any of those email addresses, and thank you for watching.